The next scenario we'll show you is, imagine you're driving down a freeway and you're following this black car, and but in your lane way up in front there's a car that's just stopped. It's run out of gas or something, but he's you don't see it until that black car moves out of the way, and he's going to do a late cutout, and all of a sudden you'll look up and you won't expect it, and you'll see that car there, and like even radar wouldn't help you too much because it can't see through this vehicle, but with this we'll get a wireless message from that stopped vehicle, and so it'll warn us even before we even before he cuts out.
And 3, 2, 1. And good.
Okay. The next one we'll show you is just a normal tailgating scenario, and you guys see that a lot. You know, people are just kind of too close, and all of a sudden, you know, they take their eye off the road for a second, and rear end crashes are about a quarter of all crashes, and they're the most frequent. They're not necessarily the most fatal, but there's a lot of them. And radar can handle this one, but we can handle it, you know, at a lot lower cost with this wireless technology.
And 3, 2, 1. And good.
Now, was that assisting the braking automatically, or is that all driver controlled?
Right now it's all driver control.
Okay.
One of the things that we're thinking about is we can tie this system to the brakes in the way that there's a system on this vehicle called brake assist, and it basically says if I think that the driver is in a panic situation and needs full braking, I'm going to give them full braking really quickly. With this system we can lower the threshold for when you get into brake assist, because we already know that there's a potential threat and the driver is just confirming. So we can actually reduce the stopping distance by kind of, once the driver hits the brakes, giving them as much braking as they need right away. But right now the car is not braking automatically. It's the driver is doing the braking.
Okay.
We already have a system on these cars called blind spot warning. There's an icon in that side mirror that lights up when you look over at it and somebody's in your blind spot. It looks back about 10 or 20 feet and sees if anybody is there. With this system we can look back about 1,000 feet, and so we can do blind spot, but we can also do a feature called lane change warning. And the idea is, imagine that you're going to change lanes, but in that lane next to you there's nobody in your blind spot, but there's a motorcycle coming up really quickly, and if you change lanes you could cut him off and create a crash. And here we can look back far enough that we see that, and we can warn the driver not to change lanes.
And 3, 2, 1.
So with this, as soon as he puts his turn signal on, we should get a warning. And that's it's all based on that same wireless message that here's my position, here's my speed. The system knew that there was somebody in that other lane.
Now the signal's being sent by just a wireless communication, like a cell phone or something like that.
It's like a Wi-Fi.
Like a Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you have Wi-Fi in your in your smartphone or your house, and like the Wi-Fi.
So the Wi-Fi is self-contained in this unit and self-contained in that one.
Yeah, they're just broadcasting over a Wi-Fi channel that the government has allocated for cars to talk to other cars.
Okay.
So it's not the same channel that you would talk in your house.
Yeah, I was just thinking about coverage, in rural areas and stuff like that for the Wi-Fi. But if it's generating its own Wi-Fi,
yeah, he's just sending out his own signal.
Okay.
And he's just basically saying, "Hey, I'm a car, and here's where I am, and here's where I'm going." And then there may be nobody around him, and so most of the time, maybe nobody's even listening.
Sure.
But once in a while, he's like getting a message from other equipped cars, and they're getting messages from him when there's a couple of cars nearby.
And with that being the case, is there any way to track? I mean, if there's a fugitive or a child abduction or something like that?
There is.
Because I'm sure it's got an ID on this Wi-Fi that we could probably track.
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from
I
that, to be
understand
honest, just because
for privacy.
we for privacy reasons, we want people to accept that this technology, is not going to be for tracking them, or
Sure.
it's not going to be for your your wife's divorce lawyer
Sure,
to see where
I
you're
understand.
going. It's not going to be for speeding tickets.
Sure.
It's not, but it's all. It would be possible, but and with cell phones,
Sure.
you can do
Yeah,
that
you can do
already.
that. Right.
But like we're trying to kind of get people to accept that we're putting wireless in their cars for their safety.
Sure.
And most of the time, you wouldn't even know about it as a driver. Most of the days you don't get into an accident, you don't need a warning. But once in a while, if you made a mistake or if somebody wasn't paying attention, you'd get one of these warnings.
Sure.
And so if people can accept that, NHTSA estimates that like maybe 80% of all the vehicle-to-vehicle crashes could be addressed with this technology. So that's like a tremendous number of accidents and lives saved and injuries.
Yeah.
And so
That's our livelihood. That's what I do for a living.
yeah, so we're going to try to put you out of business as much as we can.
Okay.
This one is for head-on crashes. Imagine this was a 2-lane road and there were cars in each direction and some rural road, and you were kind of following this guy, but there was like maybe you were in a rush and he was going kind of slow, and you looked around, you didn't see anybody come in, and you said, well, I'm going to just pull out and pass him real quick. But maybe there's a car you didn't notice or somebody coming over a hill, and you could get into a head-on crash, which is a really bad one. But with this technology, you'll get that warning when you try to change lanes.
And 3, 2, 1.
So we're following him. We're going to try to change lanes.
And good.
With this system, we tied it to the turn signal. You wouldn't have to in production. We could tie it to the steering angle or yaw rate, just something that gave us an indication that said this guy is about to change into another lane, and if we knew that other lane was occupied, we would warn the driver. Imagine that this was an intersection, and this truck was parked here, and we were trying to kind of pull into that intersection, but we couldn't really see, so we start inching up, and maybe there's a car coming across, but even before we see him, we'll get a warning.
And 3, 2, 1.
So that's for intersection crashes. Intersection crashes are about 35% of all the fatal crashes. They're usually bad ones because you get hit from the side at high speed. And this next scenario is, imagine that was still an intersection, but now there's a traffic light, and the light is green for us. So we're kind of just going to go straight through the intersection. The light is green, but for a vehicle to the right or left of us, there should be a red light, but maybe somebody blows through that red light because they're distracted or drunk or something. And so we're going to drive up. We're not going to be able to see anything because that truck is blocking us, but the light is green, so we're just going to go straight through, except somebody's going to be coming, and then all of a sudden, bang, right at the center of the intersection. But except with this system, we'll get a warning that tells us somebody's coming even before we get there.
And 3, 2, 1.
So we hit the brakes before the crash. So
Good.
that's the basic idea of this technology. Really low cost, really very capable for rear end crashes, intersection crashes, head-on crashes, lane change crashes. But we got to get everybody equipped, and so that's why we're working with other car makers and the government to kind of get that going. Thanks.